We've heard a lot about the Mediterranean diet and how we could live longer, do better by eating these foods. But what is it about the Mediterranean diet that is so life-sustaining, so helpful? Hi, I'm Dr. Brian McDonough, and welcome to Primary Care today on ReachMD. Today I have a very special guest. I'm happy to share an interview with you. Dr. Domenico Pratico. He's professor in the Department of Pharmacology and Microbiology and the Center for Translational Medicine at the Lewis Katz School of Medicine, Temple University. We're going to talk about extra virgin oil, preserving memory, and protecting the brain against Alzheimer's disease. It's all part of new research that Dr. Pratico led that was reported in the Annals of Clinical and Translational Neurology. First of all, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you, Brian, for having me.
This is exciting. I mean, doing reports like I do on a regular basis, I'm always talking about the Mediterranean diet. And when people ask me about what diets are the best, clearly the Mediterranean diet stands the test of time. And we all know that virgin olive oil is good, but you're really showing some connections here that are really important. Tell me, first of all, how did you get involved in studying this? What interested you about this?
I've been studying Alzheimer's disease for the last 18 years of my life, but in the recent time, we were very interested to try to understand how lifestyle can modulate and influence the onset of, memory problem or the ability to prevent dementia. So as you mentioned earlier, the Mediterranean diet is well known that the type of diet is a good approach as a lifestyle, but what was bugging me as a researcher was try to understand what is the ingredient, because, that diet has several important ingredients that people think are the key, such as fruit, vegetable, for example, which are good, of course. But when we start to dig into the result, the data available for epidemiological study, it strikes us that fruit and vegetable, you can get them anywhere. So it's nothing really specific of that area, the Mediterranean. But what is specific is the fact that in that area, they do have the olive tree. They do have the extra virgin olive oil, which is very specific and unique. So this was the starting point, try to understand whether or not this ingredient, part of the diet, was really able to influence learning and memory, as well as all the pathology and lesion that develop in a brain with Alzheimer's disease.
We have so many of our patients we deal with Alzheimer's or fear of developing Alzheimer's or Alzheimer's in the family. Let's talk about that for a second. What are the things we know, or at least in your 18 years of research and just reading about it, that you see contribute to Alzheimer's that we probably should be avoiding? And again, I'm aware nothing's 100%, but just things that you might suggest from your experience.
Yes, absolutely. First, important to say that the Alzheimer we are talking about, Alzheimer comes in two flavors, as you know. We have the early onset, which is the genetic version where, unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. It's a mutation, it's a DNA, and the good news is it's the minority. But the majority, which is the sporadic, is the one that affects about 95% of the individual. What we can do, we have now a better picture about the pathogenesis, how this disease develops. And what we know is, for example, there's a lot of things that happen in our midlife that then later on is going to influence our ability to keep sharp memory, to keep the ability to have good cognitive function. The midlife events are, for example, high cholesterol level, very dysregulated level of glucose in the blood, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure. All these are factors that people who are in their 40, in their 50, really need to take care, because as been shown now clearly that later in life could then influence that. And not to forget the obesity syndrome, the metabolic syndrome, the overweight. So all these are things that definitely people can do to prevent later in life the start of the pathology of the memory problem and cognitive impairment.
And what about the things that protect you? Like you mentioned right now, you're talking about virgin olive oil.
Yes.
Can that make a real difference from your research?
Absolutely. That's part of the lifestyle. The part of the lifestyle is try to, on a daily basis for a long time, try to have this extra virgin olive oil as a regular intake, as a fat intake. That would be part of this lifestyle. Another thing that is extremely important is to try to keep activity, to be engaged with your brain in type of activity. It could be socially important for you, or could be mental activity, has been shown that is extremely important to prevent. When it comes to the extra virgin olive oil, I think that is the easy one that anybody can do. Important, what I would like to say to the listener is that this is a lifestyle change. It's not something that you're going to be doing for a week or a month. I took my extra virgin olive oil and I'm okay. No, it's something you need to keep taking for a long time. It's really a chronic way of treating yourself, in this particular case, preventing that decay that otherwise would happen.
And one of the things that I know in the research and studies that I've reported on, the virgin olive oil also has other impact as well, cardiovascular system, other areas of the body. There's other advantages.
Yes, but the excitement for us for this study is that besides all these good things about cardiovascular, what we discovered in the study is that the extra virgin olive oil is able to basically activate a system in the nerve cell that is in place for clearing the nerve cell of all the kind of garbage, toxin that we accumulated with time. Don't forget, Alzheimer is typically a disease that happened in the 60, in the 65, 70 years old. So we have decades of accumulating a lot of bad things in the nerve cell. So what we discovered, which is very exciting for us, is the fact that extra virgin olive oil basically activate this mechanism, which we call autophagy. Autophagy is something that has been known for more than 10 years. As a matter of fact, somebody who discovered got the Nobel Prize for Medicine 2 years ago. But what we didn't know, that extra virgin olive oil, actually, it's a natural compound able to activate this system. So if you activate the system, it's a little bit like the garbage disposal in a sink. When it's active and functioning well, it's able to degrade and eliminate all the toxins. Think about the amyloid peptide. Think about the tau tangle, which are the culprits for the nerve cell dies when this level inside the cell is too high. So this is very exciting because we do have chemical. We do have, for the last couple of years, drugs that can activate the system, but there is a lot of concern in the community that they have a lot of side effects. There's toxicity. This is the first time that we discover a natural compound with toxicity zero that can do something so special that can really rejuvenate the nerve cell.
You're listening to Primary Care Today on ReachMD. I'm your host, Dr. Brian McDonough. My guest today is Dr. Domenico Pratico. He is professor in the Department of Pharmacology and Microbiology and the Center for Translational Medicine at the Lewis Katz School of Medicine, Temple University. And we're talking about Alzheimer's, in particular extra virgin olive oil, and the fact that his study has shown it preserves memory and protects the brain against Alzheimer's disease. Of course, this all started by talking about the Mediterranean diet. That's, of course, a diet that's rich in plant-based foods and associated with a variety of health benefits, including a lower incidence of dementia. What about lifestyle things that you can do as far as stress and exercise? How important of a part do they play? Because I know when we have patients with Alzheimer's, it is hard to get a similar picture of different individuals and figure out just what went wrong.
Yes, that's correct. The lifestyle, yes. The environmental basically plays a major role. What we believe in the field is at the moment, actually, it's a combination of environmental factor, lifestyle, and with some gene which we don't know the existence. But yes, definitely, that is an aspect that's very, very important. It is known that stressor or another element, for example, that even in my lab we did some research, is one issue that is coming up more and more frequently. It's, for example, sleep disturbances, sleep deprivation, people who don't get a good night's sleep. That is all part of this lifestyle, environmental factor that can trigger a cascade of events that can then really generate all this toxic protein, which ultimately stressor for the cells. The cells can contain for a while, but then in the long run, the cell basically dies.
So when we're talking about Alzheimer's and we're talking about olive oil, what's the best way for our patients to get it? Should they cook with it? Do you take vitamins fortified with it? What's the best way to do it?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I'm glad you raised it. Well, this study that we show and a lot of data that are out there suggest, first of all, that the extra virgin is the best versus the regular olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil should be the one, but importantly, it's not something you want to cook with. Not because cooking with extra virgin olive oil is a bad idea, but by cooking with that extra virgin olive oil, you're going to destroy the key ingredient, which is called oleocanthal. It's a chemical that extra virgin olive oil only has. That's the peculiarity. So absolutely, it's not cooking. The way an individual should take the extra virgin olive oil could be as is, natural. For example, you can sprinkle your salad, you can put on whatever type of food you're going to ingesting. Or if you don't mind, because some people don't like the flavor, sometimes it could be very strong, people can just take a tablespoon, but that could be a little bit too much. But if you can sprinkle your vegetable, so not cooked extra virgin olive oil, but natural.
How often a day, or how much should they be taking?
In our study, we looked at the data that are there. As I said, there are thousands of individuals that have been studied. The amount per day will be the equivalent of 1 to 2 tablespoons per day. But the most important thing, as I said at the beginning of our conversation, this is a lifestyle change. Again, I hope that the listener understands that the 2 tablespoons or 1.5 tablespoons depends again on the size of the body, but there is no toxicity there. It's a chronic thing. It's a change in lifestyle.
Now, a lot of physicians and those who are caring for patients listening are going to say, okay, I've got patients, let's say, you say 60, 65, 68, in that age group. Is it too late? In other words, does this process, the autophagy, is that a process where you can actually destroy things that have built and make a difference?
That's the million-dollar question, Brian, because our study does not answer that question, but it's a very good question, which we are, as I speak, investigating in my lab. So what we did different from the study we published, where we did at an age where still we tried to prevent the disease. Now we are doing a study where we are trying to treat the disease. In other words, we're going to study extra virgin olive oil after the disease has established itself, after the dementia, after the problem memory is there. So at the moment, we don't have any data showing that would work. However, what I can tell you, if I have a patient who is 65 and I think has dementia already or whatever, I would not hesitate to encourage that patient to take extra virgin olive oil because there's no risk of anything bad. We don't know exactly. I think the autophagy would be stimulated, but whether it's too late, we don't know yet. I'm optimistic. I think that even on a later stage, we still can get results. Maybe we will not get those dramatic, fantastic results, but still, it's known that people with Alzheimer, the autophagy process is way, way, way down. So if you and I are able to increase that 20%, 50% in any patient, that would result in an improvement for sure.
And we only have about a minute left, but when someone might be suspecting they have it or they feel they're at high risk, obviously the earlier you begin, you could theoretically prevent it from even occurring or put it off for years.
Yes, absolutely.
Anything I didn't ask you that you would like to mention in the final 30, 40 seconds we have?
No, I think you ask everything. I think that we cover most of the things that are related to the study, and nothing comes to my mind.
Dr. Domenico Pratico, I want to thank you for joining us on Primary Care today on ReachMD. It was a real pleasure having you with us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Brian.
And for everybody listening, if you want to catch this interview again, or if you missed part of it, you can always go to reachmd.com/primarycare today. You can download the podcast, and thank you very much for listening.